Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will be presenting a seminar on the interpretation of dreams. This is a book written by Sigmund Freud. I am Dr. Neal Kasbe, Junior Resident, Department of Psychiatry. We will be going through the introduction. We will talk about why the interpretation of dreams is important, the history behind it. We'll just gloss through what the chapter list is. There are certain assumptions that the book makes, the method of interpreting dreams. Then we'll go through the different chapters such as dream is the fulfillment of a wish, distortion in dreams, the material and sources of dreams, dream work, Oedipus complex, and the psychology of the dreams, the processes. And we'll also talk about certain critiques. Introduction. The interpretation of dreams, the German name is given over here, is an 1899 book by Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, in which the author introduces the theory of unconscious with respect to dream interpretation and discusses what would later become the theory of Oedipus complex. Dated 1900, the book was first published in an edition of 600 copies, which did not sell out for 8 years. The interpretation of dreams later gained popularity, and 7 more editions were published in Freud's lifetime. The book is notable because it introduced many of Freud's best known ideas, including the notion of unconscious mind and how it relates to the interpretation of dreams. Freud also published an abridged version on the text titled On Dreams. So initially, when the book was published, Freud took around 1,000 patients and he studied their dreams. After which he wrote the book. But when the book was written, Freud was not that famous. Later on, as he kept in the field of psychology and he got more famous, people went back to his previous works, the interpretation of dreams, and that is how the interpretation of dreams got famous. And later on, 6 to 7 versions of the book was written, and it was adapted in many languages, originally written in German. Now, why the interpretation of dreams is important? The interpretation of dreams is the classical text on dream analysis and interpretation. This was one of the first texts which was written about the dream analysis and how dreams could be interpreted. Freud found it very interesting that people have different dreams, and he also sought out that the dreams might have some meaning behind it. But when he tried to find any text on it, or when he tried to find any references for it, he could not find it. So thus he decided to write the book on his own. In it, Freud introduces many key concepts that would later become central to the theory of psychoanalysis. The book also emphasizes the role of unconscious mind, which is one of the underlying principles of Freudian psychology. If you want to understand the foundation of psychoanalysis and explore Freud's theories in greater depth, then The Interpretation of Dreams is an essential reading. The book is widely regarded as one of Freud's most important publications. If you are interested in Sigmund Freud, The Origins of Psychoanalysis or Dream Interpretation, this is a must-have text for your collection. So people who are very much interested in the formation of dreams, the interpretation of dreams, what my dreams mean or what other people's dreams mean, how they can interpret it, how they can go deeper into it, for them the interpretation of dreams is an important text. Now, history behind the book. When Freud started analyzing himself, he used his dreams quite frequently in the process. Always a vivid dreamer, Freud had by this time also noticed the impact of dreams on his patient, including psychotic patients whose hallucinations were similar to dreams. Between his own experiences and that of his patient, as I've already said, he studied more than 1,000 patients. Freud concluded that dreams are almost always expressions of unfulfilled wishes. This is what Freud concluded. Believing sincerely in the importance of dreams and realizing no one had written much, if anything, about the subject, Freud spent 2 years writing The Interpretation of Dreams. Originally published in German under the title given over here in 1900, initial sales of the book were slow and disappointing. It was largely ignored by the scientific community. In 1910, Freud's other work was becoming well known, and so The Interpretation of Dreams also became popular. It was translated in English and Russian in 1913 and 6 more languages by 1938. 7 more editions were also printed during his lifetime. This is basically the chapter list that is given in his book. We will hit most of the chapters and we will analyze the entire book. Now, what are the assumptions that the book has made? These are the certain assumptions that I found that Freud makes sporadically throughout the book. One of them is a dream is a psychotic phenomenon that can be explained. This will explain the cause of mental illness. Now Freud believed that every dream that someone has to have some kind of explanation behind it, that there is no dream which does not have any explanation. And he also believed that the causes of mental illnesses could be traced back to the dreams that a person is having. The dream has the property of turning a small annoyance that arose during a sleep into a huge event. Now, your small annoyance could be that if you are sleeping, then a doorbell is ringing, or suddenly the window opens and there's a gush of air. So these small annoyances that, when you're sleeping, maybe there's a horn on the street which is like very silently heard while you're sleeping. These small annoyances that arose during a sleep could also turn into a huge event in your dreams. The dream consists of our conscious and unconscious desires that were in real life. Now, every dream stems from certain conscious desires and unconscious desires. Dreams are often forgotten as they are not realized. The dream contains memory from the past, which at first glance are not important in the present. Now, every dream, it might come from your childhood, it might come from your adulthood, it might come from 2 days ago, or it might come from 20 years ago. This is what Freud believes. No impression from the memory of a person disappears without a trace. The dream influences both by the external, cold, sound, light, and internal stimuli, disease of internal organs. More assumptions that he makes is interpretation can help the diagnosis of latent or emerging diseases. He believed by the analysis of dreams, he can even predict what disorders that a patient, what psychiatric disorders a patient might have in its future. The dream speaks the languages of images, not of words and concepts. So the interpretation of dreams is mostly analyzed in the form of images. He always stresses on the fact of having different images or mental images that are occurring in your dreams and then giving it different meanings. So he does not place a lot of attention on the sounds that someone might have. It is always about the images. The dream reveals our unknown nature, our true desires and traits in which we are afraid to admit even to ourselves. So the dream context or the dream content might be something that we want internally, but we are not able to openly acknowledge it. He suggests that dreams are not random, but rather are constructed from the language of the unconscious mind. He argues that symbols and images of dreams are drawn from the dreamer's personal experiences and association, and that by analyzing these symbols and images, we can uncover the hidden desires and conflicts that underlie the dream. We will also be studying about a lot of images, a lot of things that he gave meaning to in the slides to come. Now, the method of interpreting dreams. Now, if you want to go on to the process of interpreting someone's dreams, what are you supposed to do? From the successful interpretation of the dreams, the mental preparation of the client is necessary. Now, when you tell a client that you are going to interpret his dream, he might become hesitant. So, first of all, you have to make sure that the client or the patient is not hesitant. It requires two things: increasing attention to his mental memories and eliminating criticism, through which he usually selects the thought that arises in his brain. Now, if you've made the patient conscious about the fact that I am going to analyze your dream, he might subconsciously, as per Freud, also decrease certain thoughts or certain wants that he have. So you have to eliminate that criticism. It is not required to look for the desired explanation of a sleep. One need to sound all thoughts and feelings. So there is nothing that is not of any significant value. So you are supposed to sound all of your thoughts and feelings. It is not so easy to drop the criticism of emerging thoughts, since many of them are unpleasant and a person is inclined to avoid traumatic memories. To understand the dream, one should not make a dream in the whole of its whole, but only individual elements of its content. Means that if you have an entire dream, you are not supposed to see the entire dream together. You are supposed to break it down into different parts, and you are supposed to analyze that parts or those mental images that the client or the patient has. So no need to take the entire story that a person has dreamt and then try to analyze it. Break it down into smaller parts, as small as you can, and analyze the small parts. Different people can dream similar dreams, but each of them will have its own meaning and desires. Any dream has a meaning and is the fulfillment of a desire. So every dream comes from a desire. The author gives an explanation of his own dream in which he sees his former patient Irma, who was treated for hysterical fever. Now he has a dream in which the patient looks painful and complains that she has a sore throat and stomach ache. So patient has a problem, and Freud tells the patient that she herself is responsible for her pain. Now this is the dream that the patient had. Now why did the doctor have this dream in which he saw a patient had a problem, and the problem is due to her own fault, is because somewhere on the eve of the dream, he met a friend who said that she was better but not so good. The author thought that it was said with a certain reproach, and he wrote an excuse note to another doctor. Now, the dream signifies the desire to justify and reassure oneself. The patient herself refused treatment and suffers not through the fault of the analyst. So, he had a patient, the doctor had a patient, and he believes that it was his fault, because of which the patient did not get cured. So it was his desire to get rid of the guilt. Thus, when he dreamt of it, he had a dream in which that guilt was then placed onto the patient, which the doctor got rid of. Therefore, the desire to get rid of the guilt resulted in a dream in which the guilt was placed onto the patient and not on the doctor itself. So this is how the dream was interpreted. He suggests that dreams is a way for the unconscious mind to express desires that are otherwise repressed or unconscious. He argued that by analyzing the content of the dream, we can uncover the hidden desire and conflicts that underlie the dream. One of the chapters is Dream is the fulfillment of a wish. The chapter proves the thesis that a dream is the fulfillment of a desire unsatisfied in reality. In the dream, the desire seems fulfilled. A simple example is a dream of thirst. If I eat salty foods in the evening, then I get thirst at night and I wake up. Before awakening, however, see a dream constantly and with one context that I dream that I drink. So because the patient was already thirsty throughout the night, his dream content was also something wherein he was constantly drinking water. So his desire was to drink water, and thus his dream was fulfilling the desire of drinking water. The realization of desire is confirmed by dream when a person is somewhere, although at the same time peacefully sleeping in the bed. So this is an example which proves that the desire is accomplished through the dream. Here another example is given, that if a young woman dreamed that she is menstruating, but in fact she was not, it was a convenient way to point out the signs of her first pregnancy. In its context, a dream can be explicit and hidden. Explicit is what you can communicate after awakening. The hidden content can be understood only after an interpretation. So a dream can be divided into two parts. Explicit is what is like very absolute, you can see it very clearly, and hidden is what you have to analyze and then come out. A dream is formed by two psychic powers. The first is the desire experienced by a person. The second is a sensor that distorts this desire. Now, obviously, not all desire is something that we can openly accept. There will be certain desires that we do not openly acknowledge or we cannot openly say. Those desires or those wants are censored or distorted. Many dreams before the interpretation are so hidden that they do not seem to be the fulfillment of a desire. Now here they have given a very complex example. I would say that I will explain it. So here the person has tried to analyze the dream of a woman who, in her dream, she wanted to invite a few guests, and the guest could not be invited. So the guest did not come home. Now in reality, one of the guests was a person who was very jealous of her husband, who she herself did not want to invite. So by dreaming that certain hindrances were caused which did not let that happen, she expressed her desire of not wanting to invite that person into her dreams. So that is what she got as a dream. The dream of a woman who sees on her clothes traces of milk means the desire for pregnancy and the opportunity to feed her future child. Children's dream clearly fulfills the desires of the child, but adults can also see infantile dreams. For example, people on a long withering constantly See dreams about a variety of food, large tobacco reserve, sweets, or an approaching ship. Now we'll talk about the distortion in dreams. In its context, a dream can be explicit and hidden. Explicit is what you can communicate after awakening, and the hidden content can be understood only after interpretation. This is something that we had seen before also. A dream is formed by two psychic powers. The first is the desire experienced by a person. The second is a sensor that distorts this desire. Material and sources of dreams. Now we will talk about the certain aspects that we need to know. What is repression? Repression is the process of denying and rejecting desire, in which the object of desire changes but the power of emotion persists. So you might have certain desire, but that desire is repressed. It is formed through the action of censorship when the desire is asocial. Like you might have a desire towards sexual tendencies, you might have desire towards incest, you might have murdering tendencies. Now repressed desire as a rule concern the Oedipus complex, which we are going to discuss later, according to which the child unconsciously seeks to his own mother and eliminate his father and brothers. These children experiences never get out, being a powerful source of dreams. Now another mechanism is a shift in which thought avoiding censorship penetrates consciousness. For example, a soldier will defend a flag, replacing the concept of homeland and duty. So if a soldier has a concept of homeland and duty, he will have a dream in which he is defending a flag. There is also condensation function in the dream, wherein several emotions, objects or events experienced can be combined into one. So we saw repression, then this is condensation, in which different emotions, different desire, different thoughts can be condensed into one. Sources of dreams can be an important emotional event, an event or series of events presented in a dream with a neutral and indifferent theme, or strong unconscious desire which has an important motive. It is replaced by an indifferent material in which the hidden content is disguised as a minor image or a trifling event. Now typical dreams and dreams which are inherent in all people. So Freud believes that if you have a dream about nudity, so what does that dream mean? So a dream about nudity is, here a person is stripped, he is ashamed, he is trying to leave, but he cannot. So the context is that if you are having a dream about nudity, your inherent emotions will be ashamed, you will try to leave the environment, but you are not able to leave this environment. So this is from childhood, where a child enjoys nudity. Stiffness suggests that the unconscious wants to enjoy nudity, but the conscious requires a cessation. Means that unconsciously, the patient who is having a dream of nudity wants to enjoy that nudity, but his conscious self is trying to pull him away from it. Death of relatives: when a dreamer does not experience grief or remains indifferent to a death, another reaction at the sight of the death of a native person, the sleeper suffers. Means the person who's having this dream about death will suffer. In fact, this is disguised desire for death to this relative. The desire for death can be disguised by care. A dream about failed exam. Now if students are having a dream about failed exam, here a person feels afraid to do something wrong and is punished for it. Such a dreamer dreams in anticipation of any test in the success of which a person doubts. So if there is going to be a test or something and you're doubting that if you're going to pass or not, then you'll have a dream about failed exams. Again, now if you have a dream wherein you're being late for a train, it usually symbolizes departure, which means it symbolizes death. A dream about flying, hovering or falling: the first flight the child makes as a child, they throw him up. Means, you pick up a child and you throw him up, rock, swinging on swings or carousels. Along with fear, he experiences a pleasant dizziness, the first sexual sensation. Dreams of takeoff are associated with an erection. The dreams of falling are an expression of fear. So if you are having a dream about flying, hovering or falling, it is about your uh, dreams about sexual experiences. The symbolism of dream is related to myths, legends, and archetypes. Now, obviously, somewhere we have to get our context for the dream. For example, the king and the queen mean parent, and their heir to the throne, prince of princess, is the dreamer himself. So, in your dream, parents will be related to king and queen. Oblong or sharp objects such as stick, cane, knife, tree, umbrella, nail, woman's hat, tie represents male characters. In the same way, boxes, cabinets, stoves, room, a wall with ledges refer to female symbols, symbolizes marital family relations. Now, sexual relations can be represented by climbing or descending the stairs. Now, a child in a dream can represent genitals, and crushing the child will represent the symbolism of a sexual act. This is a chart which Freud used different objects that you see in the dreams and place them under female organs, male organs, and intercourse. So if you're seeing a lot of boxes, if you're seeing a lot of cupboards, if you're seeing a lot of ovens, ships, vessels, closets, tunnels, wagon, caves, then it represents those the female genital organs. In the same way, he is given a list of male genital organs, and the processes, the verbal activities such as climbing stairs, climbing a ladder, going up a staircases, these represent the act of sexual intercourse. Now, Freud also talked about something called as dream work. This was one of the most interesting parts in the book because it gave the maximum insight on how to dreams are formed or how we can analyze those dreams. So Freud described a mental process called as dream work by which dreams were modified to be less disturbing. Here he gave certain terms such as latent content, which is the underlying wish or emotion or desire, manifest content, what we actually remember from the dream. Now again, latent content is something that has to be analyzed. Manifest content is something we will remember and clearly tell the examiner. The dream work process includes condensation, wherein there is fusing of different images, people, events, meanings, and ideas into a simple image. As we have already discussed, Freud used images for the analysis. So he would always go back to images and what those images mean. Displacement is that a potentially disturbing image is replaced by something less disturbing but connected. Now we have already seen that there is some kind of censorship that is going in the dream. So in the same way, displacement is wherein something which is disturbing to the mind will be presented in a less disturbing way. So if we are thinking about a tiger who is approaching us to kill us, it might be represented by a tiger who's eating, I guess, ramen noodles. So these are the typical things that we can see and their interpretation. So gravity, spatial disorientation, attack, examination, hindrance, loss, nursing, all of these will have typical dream content. This chart is very helpful if we are trying to analyze the dreams in depth. Like if there is an attack, the subject is in relationship with an enemy. This will be seen in the dream as being chased, kidnapped, attacked, being killed, dreams of police, thieves, predatory animals. So if there is hindrance, that is difficulty in controlling tools and means in his life, that will be seen as being hindrance in one moment. So it might be that the patient has a dream wherein he is walking and there is certain hindrance that is stopping him from walking, not being able to do something after many attempts. So basically what the category is and what the dream content is, that was also analyzed and is given in detail in this table. In dream work, there is also representation process by which thoughts are converted into visual images, and symbolization, wherein some neutral object stands for some aspect of sexual life or those persons connected with it which the dreamer would prefer to not recognize. So like we said that certain symbols represent certain genitalia or the act of sexual intercourse. So if the uh, patient does not want to openly acknowledge, then it comes into certain images through the process of symbolization. The technique of analyzing a dream is to treat the dream not as a whole but separate each of its elements. As I've already said that do not see the dream as an entire story. break it down into different images and try to analyze it. The dream contains only thoughts, not the connections between them. To connect several thoughts, the dreamer uses a form of simultaneity when all the material is presented in the form of one event. So Freud believed that we might see an event altogether, but that event is formed through different small images which are then connected to make a whole story. To express contradictory relations, the dreamer uses reversal of the element in the dream. A dream can distort the time when the final event is placed at the end and the cause is at the beginning of the dream, which makes it all the more necessary to not be temporal in analyzing the dream. Now, Freud also talked about the Oedipus complex in the book, which later got popularized and then multiple works were written on it. Now, in the fourth chapter, Freud introduces the idea of Oedipus complex. Now, as per Freud, Oedipus was an actual person who killed his father to have intimate relationships with his mother, on which he named the complex on. This is the idea that children may have unconscious desire for their parents. He suggests that these desires can manifest in dreams as symbols of incest and other taboo behavior. He argues that by analyzing the contents of the dream, we can uncover the hidden desires and conflicts that underlie the dream. Anxious desire for the mother, the boy wants to command her complete attention. Recognition of the father as a rival, hostility and aggression directed towards the father. Now, boys exhibit castration anxiety. A similar was also given by Carl Jung, wherein he talks about women having jealousy for the mother, in which women have penis jealousy. The psychology of the dream process. This is the last chapter. The author puts forward the hypothesis that a dream is the result of the conservation of energy of the organism, which tends to preserve the state of sleep longer, since sleep is the optimal state of equilibrium. For the lack of a better word, Freud uses the word sleepy sleep, in which he means very well rested sleep. A dream is a complete closure of the organism on oneself, excluding oneself from the interaction with the external environment. So Freud said that when a person is dreaming, he's there is complete closure of the organism on oneself, and the only thing that he is exposed to uh, is the internal environment and is excluded completely from the external environment. But the body systems depend on the influence of external conditions, climatic temperature, sound and visual stimuli. And thus, the influence of external factors takes the body from a state of rest, creates tension, which it seeks to neutralize through the dream. So Freud believes that in that complete resting state, there will be external environments which will cause this states of unrest, and the body will try to dissolve this tension and then neutralize it through the dreams. This is how dreams are formed. The dream transforms into external impressions, door, bell, door clap, cold, into dream images designed to soften real impressions with imaginary images. The author calls the passive system the unconscious, the active ones the preconscious. The former produces various effects, the latter seeks to censor them. Affective and censoring systems perform various tasks, creating a mental conflict. So unconscious will produce the effect and the preconscious will try to dampen that effect. The unconscious produces an irrational aggressive activity that causes an unpleasant emotion, and the preconscious is oriented towards the censoring activity of the mind and seeks to create a compromise with the instincts of the unconscious. Concluding line of the book concludes with the idea that a dream carries us to the future, but the future is a copy and reproduction of the past. So basically it means that in the dream you are carried to the future, but the future that you are taking or the future that you are dreaming is actually a reproduction and a copy of the past. Now we'll quickly go through the critiques of the book. There is a notable lack of scientific vigor throughout the book. Many of Freud's conclusions lack empirical support. Many of Freud's ideas have not been substantiated by current research, and aspects of a psychoanalytic theories have not fared well over time. For example, Freud believed that dreams were a way to gain insight into the workings of the unconscious mind. However, researchers have found that the content of dreams is mostly often simply a reflection of waking life. People often dream about things that are on their minds, which is a reflection of conscious thoughts rather than unconscious thoughts. In the interpretation of dreams, Freud also suggests that dreams were a form of wish fulfillment. The problem is that some dreams focus on difficult topics such as trauma, punishment, or anxiety, while Freud suggested that such dreams were a way to cope with the problems rather than wish fulfillment. Such dreams are often a reflection of worries or memories that are way of coping rather than a way of wish fulfillment. While Freud believes that dreams were primarily about wish fulfillment and expressions of the unconscious, researchers today believe that dreams serve to consolidate memory and learning. This is the often fragmented and confusing content of dreams may be a brain's way of incorporating new information and experiences into long-term memory. Thank you. These are my references.